The first thing people heard wasn't his voice, it was the sharp slap of plastic hitting stone as the teller flicked his ID off the counter like she was brushing away dust, the card spinning across the polished floor under the cold ceiling lights, and in that instant every conversation in the Redwood financial lobby thinned into a nervous hush because humiliation always has a sound and everyone recognized it before they even turned their heads, but none of them knew that the man she'd just dismissed was quietly holding a power that could suffocate this entire branch in minutes without ever raising his tone. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Jordan. He didn't rush to pick up the ID, he bent with a steadiness that felt deliberate, almost ceremonial, like he'd done this before too many times before, his fingers brushing the edge of the card while the teller, Megan Lowe, watched with an expression that suggested she believed she had already solved the mystery of who he was, nobody. His jeans were clean but unremarkable, his jacket simple, his stance quiet, and that was all she needed to decide the rest. "Sir, that ID doesn't match the account holder," she said, her tone clipped, strained with the kind of confidence built not on evidence but on expectation. Jordan placed the ID back on the counter, the corner dented from her nail. "Run it," he said calmly. Megan didn't touch it. "I'm not wasting system time on fakes." A man in line shifted and muttered something about another one trying it, while a woman near the deposit slips pulled her bag closer, the subtle choreography of prejudice playing out like muscle memory. Jordan inhaled slowly, the kind of breath that comes from years of swallowing moments just like this. At 20, being questioned about a scholarship check. At 28, being told by a loan officer that these numbers can't be yours. At 36, watching a bank manager scrutinize the way his name sounded out loud. Across the room, a young associate, Lena Ortiz, looked up. She recognized the last name on the ID, Hale, because earlier that morning an internal memo flagged a confidential executive review connected to Hale Dynamics, the controlling stakeholder of Redwood Financial's upcoming multi-billion-dollar infrastructure deal. But she hesitated, her eyes flicking from Jordan to Megan, unsure if stepping in would cost her job or cost her conscience. "You need to step aside," Megan snapped, reaching for the desk phone. "Security will handle this." Jordan didn't move. "I'm here to authorize a wire." "For what amount?" she asked, even though she had already decided the answer wouldn't matter. $7 billion, he said, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a clarity that made a couple of heads turn. Megan laughed, a short, brittle sound. "Sir, please don't embarrass yourself." What she didn't know was that the deal had been pending final approval, waiting on Jordan's signature, and with one quiet command he could freeze every asset she handled daily. Her hand hovered over the phone, but the air shifted before she touched it, thickening with the weight of something she hadn't anticipated, consequence. Jordan's phone buzzed in his palm. A single message from his assistant, "Ready when you are." He looked up, eyes steady, voice still level. "Megan," he said, "this moment will cost more than you can imagine." And the lobby, every witness, every breath, felt the tremor begin. The phone in Megan's hand hovered just inches above the keypad, but something about the way Jordan stood there, calm and immovable, made the entire lobby feel like it was waiting for a verdict that had not yet been spoken, and before she could press a single button, a voice cut across the room with a sharpness that startled even her. "Ma'am, his identification looks valid," Lena Ortiz said, her voice tight but steady as she stepped out from behind her workstation. Her badge glinted under the cool lobby lights as she walked closer, hands slightly trembling as she tried to balance truth with the fear of contradicting her superior. Megan turned sharply toward her, eyes narrowing. "Lena, return to your station. This situation is being handled." But the tension in the air was already shifting, subtle but undeniable, as if the building itself leaned in to listen. Lena swallowed hard and continued, "I saw the Hale Dynamics memo this morning. The name matches. You should verify." Megan scoffed loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Please, do not embarrass yourself. You think someone dressed like him is associated with a billion-dollar company?" Jordan said nothing. His silence was not avoidance, it was indictment. A man near the service counter muttered, "They always try something," while a woman with a stroller shook her head, unsure whether to intervene or retreat. Megan planted her hands on the counter and leaned forward. Sir, I do not know how you got that identification made, but it is not going to work here. We have protocols. Jordan finally lifted his eyes to hers. Then follow them. The words were quiet, but something inside Megan bristled as if she had been challenged in front of an audience she did not want but now had. She jabbed the phone button, calling for internal verification, her tone laced with impatience. Security to desk 1. Possible fraud attempt. A murmur rippled through the lobby. Not loud, not chaotic, but judgmental enough that Jordan could feel the familiar heat of being misread and dismissed. Not the heat of anger, but of recognition. At 23, a teller froze his account and asked him if the check he deposited was borrowed. At 31, an investment associate assumed he was the driver for the man behind him. At 39, a loan officer asked for someone more financially literate to sign with him. And now, at 43, inside a bank whose parent company he controlled, his identity was still negotiable to people who had already decided who he must be. Behind Megan, the door to the security office opened, and a guard stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, hands resting near his belt as if preparing for a confrontation that had not yet occurred. "Where is the individual?" he asked. Megan pointed directly at Jordan. "Right there. He is refusing to provide a real identification." Jordan's jaw tightened, but his expression remained composed, his voice steady and controlled. "I have provided everything required." It was dismissed without review. The guard stepped closer, posture stiff. "Sir, I will need you to stand back from the counter." Lena took a step forward, her voice cracking under pressure. "He did nothing wrong. We have not run his information. That is against policy." Megan shot her a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "Lena, last warning. If you interfere again, you will be written up." A young man in line, recording with his phone halfway lowered, whispered, "This is not right." Jordan looked at the guard, then at Megan, then at the customers who were now witnessing a script they had seen too many times before. His phone buzzed once more with a message from his assistant, "Protocol is ready." Jordan exhaled, a slow and measured breath. "Megan," he said quietly, "your assumption is about to cost this branch more than you understand." And for the first time, Megan's confidence flickered. The guard's shoes echoed across the marble as he approached Jordan, the sound sharp enough to slice through the murmurs building in the lobby, and Megan straightened her blazer as if preparing for a performance she believed she would win. "Sir, step away from the counter," the guard repeated, his voice carrying the weight of an order rather than a request, but Jordan remained exactly where he was, unmoving, anchored by something deeper than defiance. "I am not obstructing anything," he said calmly, "I am waiting for the process to be followed." Megan scoffed loudly, tossing her hair back. "Process has been followed. I deemed the identification invalid, and that is final." Her certainty rang out with the brittle confidence of someone who had never been challenged by consequence. A man near the entrance muttered, "Just listen to the employee," while another woman whispered, "Why is he being so difficult?" Though every person in the room could see Jordan had not raised his voice, had not made a single threatening move. Lena stepped forward again, every inch of her body trembling with the pressure of speaking truth in the wrong room. "Megan, his identification needs to be entered into the system. That is policy. We cannot skip verification based on appearance." Megan's eyes sharpened. "Appearance has nothing to do with this." But the words did not land, they evaporated under the weight of what everyone had already seen. Jordan watched the exchange quietly, his hands resting loosely at his sides, his breathing steady. "If you believe the identification is false," he said, "run it. You will have your answer." Megan slammed her palm on the desk, a crack of frustration echoing louder than she intended. "I do not need to run it. I know a fake when I see one." The guard positioned himself directly beside Jordan, his stance widening. "Sir, do not make this more difficult than it needs to be." Jordan tilted his head slightly, studying the man's posture. "Difficult for whom?" The guard hesitated, thrown off balance by the calm precision in Jordan's tone. Before he could answer, a loud clatter rang out as a tablet from a nearby counter slipped and hit the floor. A customer, an older woman with silver hair, had dropped it when Megan's last sentence startled her. He did not do anything, the woman said, voice tight with disbelief. You have not even looked at the card. Megan shot her a strained smile. Ma'am, please stay out of this. We are trained to identify threats. Jordan's eyes flicked upward, meeting hers briefly. Threats, he repeated, the word tasting familiar, worn, exhausting. At 27, a rental agent refused him a car for safety concerns. At 33, a security officer escorted him out of a lobby he was scheduled to speak in. At 38, a concierge asked for someone more appropriate to check in alongside him. Lena stepped closer to the counter, gathering courage like breath. Megan, I need to log this incident if we continue. It is required when identification is denied without verification. Megan's expression curdled. Lena, do you want to keep your job? The room went quiet. Not silent. Heavy. Jordan's phone buzzed once more. A single message from his assistant read, "Corporate is on standby. One word from you." Megan lifted her chin. Security, escort him out. The guard reached forward, his hand hovering just inches from Jordan's arm. And in that suspended inch of space, the atmosphere in the bank shifted, as if the entire room understood something irreversible was about to happen. Jordan raised his voice for the first time, not loud, but unmistakably firm. Touch me, and this branch will not see the end of the hour. The guard froze. Megan's confidence shattered in her eyes before it showed on her face. And the lobby held its breath. The guard's hand hovered in the air, suspended inches from Jordan's arm, but something in Jordan's tone had frozen him mid-motion, as if the room itself had issued a warning. Megan blinked rapidly, her confidence flickering like a light under faulty wiring, yet she tried to pull it back together with a sharp inhale. Security, that is an order, she snapped, but even her voice carried a thin crack she could not hide. The guard shifted his weight, uncertain now, sensing that whatever line he was about to cross was not one he could walk back. Jordan's expression remained steady, his eyes calm, his stance unbroken, the quiet center of a storm that everyone else had stirred without understanding who stood at its core. Behind the counter, a second employee, a young man named Bryce, peeked over his monitor with wide eyes. Megan, he said hesitantly, I think we should check the identification. This does not feel right. Megan whipped around. Bryce, stay out of it unless you want to join Lena in pushing paperwork for the next 3 weeks. Lena did not retreat. She stepped closer, planting herself firmly between the guard and Jordan. We have skipped multiple steps in verification. That is misconduct, and you know it. The customers who had been pretending not to watch were now fully invested. A teenager raised her phone, not recording yet but ready to. An older black man near the waiting chairs crossed his arms and said, I have seen this play out my entire life. A woman holding a purse whispered to her husband, why is he being treated like this? Megan tried to regain control by dialing a number on the desk phone. We are escalating this, she announced loudly, as if volume alone would make her right. This is a potential financial threat. Jordan let the words settle, then answered with chilling clarity, the only threat here is your refusal to do your job. The guard swallowed hard. It was not fear of Jordan, it was fear of being on the wrong side of something larger than he understood. Megan slammed the phone down. Dispatch is on the line. I am reporting this attempt as fraudulent, she declared. Her voice carried across the lobby, but instead of support, she met growing unease. Lena stepped forward again. If you call this in, and you are wrong, the audit will not protect you. It will expose you. Megan snapped, I am the manager. I decide what the audit sees. And that sentence, more than anything she had said before, shifted the air in the room. Jordan's phone buzzed. A new message from his assistant read, Compliance team is monitoring. Say the word. Jordan lifted his eyes, locking onto Megan with a calmness that unnerved her. You are certain you want to make that call? He asked. Megan crossed her arms. Absolutely. But her voice wavered. The guard looked to Bryce. Bryce looked to Lena. Customers exchanged glances, sensing the momentum turning. A single phone beeped as someone started. Recording. Megan noticed and barked, "No cameras." The older woman who had dropped her tablet earlier spoke up, her voice firm. "Young lady, you do not get to hide this. We saw everything." Megan's face paled. "Ma'am, stay out of this." Jordan finally moved, not stepping forward, not raising his voice, simply lifting his phone to his ear. "Carla," he said evenly, "begin the first phase of protocol. Confirm monitoring." The line clicked, and a crisp voice answered instantly, "Already active, Jordan. Every word in this branch is being logged. Proceed when ready." Megan froze. The guard froze. The lobby went motionless. Because for the first time, they understood that the man they tried to remove was not a problem to get rid of. He was the reckoning they had summoned themselves. For several long seconds, no one moved, as if the entire branch had been placed under glass. Even the hum of the overhead lights seemed to dim when Carla's voice confirmed that every word, every breath, every choice was now being recorded in real time. Megan's throat tightened, but pride pushed her forward, forcing her to pretend she still had control. "I do not care who you called," she snapped, though her voice trembled at the edges. "This is my branch. I am responsible for security, and I am not allowing a fraudulent transaction to proceed." Jordan did not look at her. He did not need to. He simply lowered his phone and held it loosely at his side, the quiet confidence in his posture more powerful than anything he could have shouted. The guard cleared his throat nervously. "Ma'am, maybe we should wait before escalating further." Megan's eyes flashed with irritation. "You follow my orders, not his." But her words landed weaker than before, dissolving under the weight of the growing number of witnesses. A young mother holding a toddler said, "He has been calm the whole time. You have not even checked the identification." A man in a business suit stepped closer. "This is not protocol. I work in corporate banking. You are skipping half the required steps." Megan spun toward him. "Sir, this does not concern you." Jordan heard the sentence and felt something inside him shift, not anger, not shock, but the familiar ache of recognition. At 24, he had stood outside a bank in Atlanta holding a check that bore his name, yet the teller insisted it must belong to someone else. At 30, he had been asked to wait in a side room while 3 employees confirmed whether his account actually existed. At 40, he walked into a branch board meeting only to be mistaken for a technician there to fix the projector. They saw what they wanted to see, and what they wanted to see was never him. Lena stepped forward again, hands visibly shaking but resolve sharpening her voice. "Megan, I am logging this incident now. Refusing to verify identification is a violation, and the audit team will ask why." Megan's face flushed. "You do not get to challenge me." "I am not challenging you," Lena replied, "I am telling the truth." A murmur of agreement rippled through the lobby. The teenager who had hesitated earlier now hit the record button on her phone with a decisive tap. Another customer lifted his device. Someone whispered, "This is going straight online." Megan noticed the cameras and snapped, "Put those away immediately. You do not have permission to record." The older woman from earlier responded, "You lost that privilege the moment you threw his identification away." Megan's composure wavered, her eyes darted from the phones to the guard to Jordan, who remained unnervingly still. She tried to regain ground by announcing loudly, "Dispatch will be here in minutes. When they arrive, he will be removed from the premises." Jordan finally looked up at her, his voice quiet but unwavering. "Make the call." The simplicity of the statement shook her. "What did you just say?" "Make the call," he repeated, "so your superiors can hear exactly how you handled this." Bryce swallowed hard and whispered, "Oh no." The guard took a slow step back, sensing a shift he could not name. Megan lifted the receiver again with trembling fingers. "This is Manager Lowe at Redwood Financial Branch 12 requesting immediate law enforcement support for a suspected." Before she could finish the sentence, a speaker behind the counter crackled to life with a tone none of the employees had heard before, a tone reserved only for internal executive-level overrides. A voice followed, calm, measured, unmistakably authoritative, "This is the Redwood Financial Compliance Office. Manager Megan Lowe, halt all actions immediately." Every head turned. Megan froze, hands still clutching the phone. What? Why is compliance calling here? The voice continued, a high-level stakeholder is currently in your branch. All activity involving him is being monitored. Do not proceed with your call. The room went silent, every pair of eyes shifting slowly toward Jordan. And for the first time, Megan understood that the man she had dismissed as a threat was the one person in the building her entire career depended on. The words from the compliance office hung in the air like a warning bell, sinking into every corner of the branch with a weight that made even the fluorescent lights seem to flicker. Megan's fingers slowly loosened around the phone receiver until it dangled uselessly against the desk, her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and dawning fear. The guard stepped back fully now, no longer postured for confrontation but for retreat, his stance breaking as he realized he had almost placed his hands on someone far above his authority. Lena looked at Jordan with a mixture of relief and something close to awe, her voice quiet but steady as she said, "They never call directly. Not unless something serious is happening." Bryce whispered under his breath, "This is above all of us." But Megan tried to salvage the shreds of control slipping through her fingers. "Compliance must be confused," she said, her voice brittle. "There is no high-level stakeholder here. We have a situation, and I need to." The speaker crackled again, interrupting her. "Manager Lowe, stand down. Do not escalate the matter further. You are being observed." Her face drained of color. A few customers exchanged glances while others lifted their phones higher, recording everything with the quiet certainty that this moment was no longer just an incident, it was a turning point. Jordan remained silent through all of it, his posture steady, his breathing controlled. He did not need to assert anything. The truth was asserting itself for him. Compliance continued, all personnel are required to halt operations involving the guest in front of your counter. Verification protocols were not followed. An internal audit is being initiated. A collective gasp rippled through the lobby. Megan's lip trembled. "A audit," she whispered, barely able to push the word out. She tried once more, desperate. This must be a mistake. This man presented false identification. "I followed my instincts, and your instincts," Jordan said quietly, "are the reason we are here now." His voice was soft, but the impact was sharp enough to draw the attention of every person in the room. Megan swallowed hard. "You cannot speak to me like that. I am the manager." "And I am the person whose identification you refused to run," Jordan replied, "because you decided you already knew who I was." His words were not angry. They were precise, measured, rooted in truth. The speaker crackled a third time. "Manager Lowe, move away from the counter immediately. Compliance officers will arrive shortly. Do not obstruct them." Megan backed up, stumbling slightly as the realization unfolded inside her like a slow collapse. Lena stepped into her place without hesitation, pulling the verification terminal toward her. "Sir," she said to Jordan, "may I scan your identification now?" Jordan nodded and handed over the same card Megan had tossed aside minutes earlier. Her hands shook slightly as she fed it into the system. The screen blinked. It processed. Then, within seconds, it turned blue with a notification that lit the entire display. Executive level clearance, Hale Dynamics primary stakeholder. Verification 100% confirmed. Bryce inhaled sharply. "Oh my God." The guard muttered, "You have got to be kidding me." A woman in the line whispered, "He tried to tell them." Another customer murmured, "He never raised his voice once." Megan stared at the screen as if it were betraying her. "This cannot be real," she said, voice cracking. But Lena kept reading aloud, her voice steadier now. "Authorized for unrestricted branch access. Asset control protocols. Corporate oversight authority." She looked up at Jordan, stunned. "Sir, you own the parent company." Jordan held her gaze with quiet acknowledgement. Then, slowly, he turned back toward Megan, whose composure finally broke. Who are you?" she whispered. Jordan stepped forward just enough for her to hear him clearly. "The man you tried to remove from his own institution. The room fell silent, and this time silence did not belong to Megan. It belonged to him. For a moment, the entire branch stood suspended in a silence so heavy it felt physical, pressing against the walls, the ceiling, even the air itself, as every witness tried to reconcile the man Megan had dismissed with the truth now glaring from the verification screen. Jordan did not need to raise his voice or adjust his posture, the revelation had done the work for him. Megan's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, but no words came out. Her authority had not merely cracked, it had collapsed. The guard stepped fully aside, straightening his uniform as if trying to erase the last 10 minutes from his own memory, while Bryce and Lena exchanged glances that were equal parts shock and vindication. A customer whispered, "He is the owner," another murmured, "She is finished," and the teenager holding her phone simply breathed out, "This is insane," as she continued recording every second. Jordan looked at Megan with quiet clarity. "You asked who I am," he said. "I am the one who signs off on this branch's operational budget every quarter." Megan blinked rapidly, as if trying to force the world back into an order that no longer existed. "I did not know," she stammered. "If you had told me who you were, I would have." Jordan raised a single hand, stopping her mid-sentence without touching her. "You would have treated me differently," he said, not as a question but as a statement of fact. "That is the problem." The words struck harder than anything he had said before, sliding beneath the surface where excuses could not reach. Lena swallowed, her voice quiet but firm. "Sir, your account is fully validated. You have unrestricted access. How would you like to proceed?" Jordan looked at her, offering a faint nod of respect. "Thank you for doing your job." Megan flinched at the sentence, small and polite but devastating in its contrast. Before she could respond, the overhead speaker chimed again. The same controlled voice from compliance returned. "This is the Redwood Financial Compliance Office. A field team is en route. Estimated arrival is 4 minutes. All staff are to remain where they are." Bryce muttered under his breath, "They are sending a field team? For this?" The guard exhaled slowly, understanding now that the situation was far bigger than anything he had been prepared for. Jordan's phone buzzed once more. He glanced at the screen. A message from his assistant read, "Legal team connected. Ready for your directive." He lifted the phone to his ear, turned away from the counter just enough to speak privately, and said, "Carla, activate the audit. Full review. Start with Branch 12's management practices." Megan staggered a step forward. "Wait, please, do not do that. I can explain. I was trying to protect the branch." Jordan turned back to her, his expression unreadable but undeniably resolute. "What you were protecting, Manager Lowe, was your bias." A few customers gasped under their breath. The older woman who had defended him earlier stepped forward slightly, clutching her purse. "He gave you everything you needed, and you still treated him like a suspect," she said, voice shaking with controlled anger. Megan's eyes darted between her employees, the customers, and Jordan, searching for someone, anyone, who might bail her out from the consequences unfolding around her. No one moved. Bryce looked down. The guard looked away. Lena stood tall, finally sure of where she belonged. Jordan spoke again, steady and unshaken. "I did not ask for special treatment. I asked for basic protocol. You refused to follow it. That refusal has consequences." Megan clasped her hands together, desperation creeping into her voice. "Sir, please, I have worked here for 6 years. This job means everything to me." Jordan held her gaze, calm and unwavering. "So does dignity," he replied. "And today, you denied mine." The speaker chimed again with a final directive. "Compliance is entering the building." And as every head turned toward the glass doors, Megan realized that her fate was walking through them. The glass doors opened with a soft hydraulic hiss, but the sound carried the weight of a verdict, drawing every pair of eyes toward the trio of compliance officers stepping inside with deliberate, measured strides. Their navy jackets bore the silver Redwood Financial insignia, the kind that only appeared during major investigations, and the moment Megan saw them she swayed slightly, as if her knees forgot how to hold her. The lead officer, a tall woman with steel gray eyes and a badge clipped to her belt, approached the counter with calm authority.
"Which of you is Manager Megan Lowe?"
Her voice was not harsh, but it carried the finality of procedure.
Megan stepped forward, shoulders trembling. "I am."
"Officer, I believe there has been some misunderstanding. I was attempting to prevent fraud, and this man," the officer lifted one hand.
"We will review your statement shortly. For now, you are to step away from the counter." Megan froze. "Step away?"
"Yes," the officer said, not unkindly, but with unmistakable firmness.
"You are being relieved of active duty pending investigation." A ripple of shock moved through the lobby. Bryce covered his mouth. Lena exhaled in disbelief. Even the guard let out a low whistle. Megan's voice cracked. "Please, you do not understand, I was doing my job. I followed my instincts."
The officer met her eyes. "Your instincts are not procedure."
Another officer stepped forward and retrieved the verification logs from the terminal, his expression tightening as he scrolled.
"No identification scan prior to escalation, no communication to senior staff, multiple protocol breaches," he said, reading the notes aloud as the customers listened in stunned silence.
Megan shook her head violently.
"He refused to cooperate," she insisted. "He was being confrontational, and ma'am," the officer said calmly, "the logs show he answered every request and remained compliant from the start." The teenager recording whispered, "This is wild," while the older woman added, "She thought she could just make things up."
Megan looked desperately toward her staff. "Bryce, tell them.
Tell them he was being difficult."
Bryce's face crumpled.
His voice was small but honest.
"He was not, Megan. He was calm.
You were the one who skipped procedure." The betrayal in his words seemed to hollow Megan out from the inside.
She turned to Lena next. "You are going to side with him? After everything I have done to train you?"
Lena stepped forward, spine straight, voice steady. "You did not train me to break the rules, Megan."
The guard added, "He did not do anything threatening. I only approached because you ordered it." Megan's breathing quickened.
"This is not fair," she whispered.
"I did what I thought was right."
Jordan finally spoke, his voice still low and controlled.
"You acted on what you assumed was right. There is a difference." The lead officer nodded respectfully toward Jordan.
"Sir, we apologize for the misconduct you experienced.
A full report is being launched, and corrective actions will be immediate."
She turned back to Megan. "Manager Lowe, hand over your access badge."
The room held its breath. Megan's fingers trembled as she unhooked the plastic card from her lanyard.
The officer scanned it with a handheld device. A sharp beep sounded, followed by a cold red light.
"Access terminated," the device announced mechanically. Gasps rippled through the lobby. Someone whispered, "It is over."
The officer stepped aside. "You will be escorted to the back for a formal statement. Please do not disturb branch operations further."
Megan looked at Jordan, eyes filled with a mixture of anger, regret, and disbelief.
"I did not know who you were," she said.
Softly.
Jordan held her gaze. "You did not need to know who I was. You only needed to know how to do your job."
Her face crumpled.
The officers guided her toward the back hallway, each step echoing like a slow unraveling of every decision she had made that morning. And as the doors closed behind her, the balance of the room shifted completely, tilting toward the man she had tried so hard to diminish. The moment the doors to the back hallway shut behind Megan, a heavy stillness washed over the branch, not the tense, brittle kind that had filled the room before, but the kind that follows a storm when the air is trying to understand what has just happened. For the first time since Jordan walked through the door, the entire lobby seemed to breathe together. The compliance officers were already reviewing the terminal logs, murmuring in clipped, efficient tones, while customers stared at Jordan with a mixture of respect, remorse, and stunned realization. Bryce broke the silence first, stepping forward with both hands raised slightly, like someone approaching truth with caution. "Sir," he said, voice trembling, "I am sorry.
I should have spoken earlier.
Jordan looked at him, no anger in his eyes, just the steady weight of someone who had lived this pattern too many times. Doing the right thing late is better than not doing it at all, Jordan replied. Bryce exhaled shakily, relief and guilt mixing in his expression. Lena stepped closer next, her voice soft but firm. Sir, we all saw what happened. You were respectful the whole time. You followed every protocol. She did not. Jordan nodded once. Thank you for saying that. The guard approached as well, removing his cap in a gesture of humility. Sir, I owe you an apology. I should not have moved in on you the way I did. That was wrong. Jordan met his eyes. You were following in order. Just make sure the next time you follow it with judgment. The guard nodded, chastened. Behind them, the lead compliance officer approached. Sir, we appreciate your patience. We have contacted corporate headquarters. They will join the audit review within the hour. Jordan sighed quietly, the kind of sigh that carried years of history, memories of banks, offices, hotels, and boardrooms where his legitimacy was questioned before his name was even read. The officer added, We have also notified the acquisition division. If you wish to escalate the matter to internal legal channels, everything is already documented. Thank you, Jordan said, his voice steady. A small crowd of customers edged closer, their discomfort now turning into something more vocal. A middle-aged man in a suit said, I am sorry, sir. I saw the whole thing. She treated you like you were less than everyone here. A young woman chimed in nervously, if you post the footage, people need to see this. This kind of thing happens all the time. An older black man near the chairs nodded slowly. It has been happening for decades, he said. The only difference now is people are finally watching. Jordan heard the words and felt them settle deeply. They were not new, but they were true. Another customer asked hesitantly, Sir, if you do not mind me asking, why did you stay so calm? Jordan took a moment before answering. Because outrage would have given them the story they wanted, he said. But silence gave them the truth. The teenager who had been filming lowered her phone slightly. It was powerful, she whispered. The way you never raised your voice. Jordan offered a faint, tired smile. Power does not need volume. It needs clarity. The compliance officers signaled to him. Sir, you may step into the office whenever you are ready. We will finalize the account authorization and proceed with your directives. Jordan nodded, but before he walked away, he turned back toward the customers, the employees, the guard, all of them. I hope what happened today stays with you, he said. Not because of who I am, but because of how easily dignity can be taken when assumptions speak louder than facts. The words landed with the weight of lived truth, heavy enough that no one dared to respond. Jordan stepped toward the glass office doors, each step measured, grounded, certain, and the lobby watched him go, understanding only now that his quiet strength had reshaped everything they thought they knew about the moment. And as the door closed gently behind him, the room did not just fall silent. It fell humbled. Inside the glass-walled office, the noise of the lobby softened into a distant hum, but Jordan could still feel the weight of every eye that had followed him to the door, not out of suspicion this time, but out of respect, regret, and a dawning understanding of the power he had chosen not to wield until it became necessary. The lead compliance officer entered behind him, closing the door gently before taking a seat across the table. Sir, she began, placing a tablet in front of her, corporate headquarters is now connected. They have reviewed the initial logs and are awaiting your directives regarding disciplinary action, branch oversight, and the pending acquisition. Jordan looked through the glass at the employees outside. Bryce stood stiffly behind his counter, Lena hovered near the verification terminal with worry etched in her shoulders, and the guard lingered awkwardly by the entrance like a man rereading his own choices. The customers waited too, whispering among themselves, all of them watching the room where consequences would take shape. Jordan breathed slowly, not out of indecision, but out of the same discipline he had carried through every door where he was unwelcome. Before we proceed, he said to the officer, I want a complete timeline of what was said, recorded, and ignored. She nodded, tapping the tablet. Already prepared. The audit documentation includes verbal transcripts, log entries, and witness statements. We also pulled the camera footage. She paused, her voice softening. It is clear you were profiled the moment you approached the counter. Jordan did not react outwardly, but something in his jaw tightened for just a moment. He remembered the sting of that familiar pattern at 16, at 21, at 34, at 40, each time a variation of the same story told through a different mouth. Attach everything to the internal review, he said. No portions omitted. Yes, sir, she replied. Another compliance officer entered, carrying a small secure case. Sir, he said, we also have immediate authority to implement managerial changes at this branch, including temporary suspension of staff, pending your approval. Jordan looked up. What about the teller who tossed the identification? Terminated on the spot, the officer replied. Corporate confirmed the decision. Jordan nodded once. He did not celebrate it. He did not relish it. He simply accepted the necessity of accountability. And Manager Lowe, he asked. The lead officer answered carefully. She will be placed on immediate administrative leave until the audit is complete. Given the violations, termination is highly probable. Jordan leaned back slightly, letting her words settle. Through the glass he saw Megan being escorted to the side office. Her shoulders were slumped, her expression hollow, the collapse of a certainty she had believed would protect her. Bryce held his head down. Lena watched Jordan with quiet, steady resolve. The guard avoided looking at anyone. Send me the final audit, Jordan said. I will sign off once I review it in full. The officer nodded and stood. Of course, sir. We will finalize the wire authorization after the audit documents are sent. Jordan's expression did not change. The acquisition can wait, he said. What happened out there matters more than $7 billion. The officers paused, surprised but respectful. When they stepped out of the office to continue their procedures, Jordan remained for a moment longer, alone in the stillness. He looked at his reflection in the glass, the lobby behind him, the employees waiting, the customers standing silently. And in that reflection he saw not just himself, but every version of him who had been dismissed, doubted, or diminished. He whispered to the empty room, not out of anger, but truth. This time, it ends differently. Then he stood, ready for what the next minutes would demand. When Jordan stepped out of the glass-walled office, the lobby shifted as if the entire room stood at attention, conversations halted mid-sentence, customers straightened their posture, and even the ambient hum of the air conditioning seemed to quiet in deference to the man they had so profoundly misjudged. He walked with a calm that was not rehearsed but earned, the measured composure of someone who understood that every step carried both memory and meaning. Bryce immediately moved aside, clearing a path even though Jordan did not need one. Lena stood a little taller, the fear that had once clouded her expression replaced with steadiness and something almost protective. The guard kept his eyes lowered, hands folded in front of him, waiting for whatever consequence he might deserve. The lead compliance officer followed behind Jordan, carrying a digital tablet with the finalized reports. Sir, she said quietly, corporate has confirmed they will implement your instructions the moment you approve the document. We have placed the branch in temporary modified operations until the audit is complete. Jordan nodded, not slowing his pace. Thank you. I will complete the review shortly. As he approached the counter where everything had begun, the customers instinctively stepped back to give him space. They were not afraid of him, they were ashamed of themselves. A man in a striped tie spoke first. Sir, if I may, you handled all of this with more restraint than most people ever could. I respect that. Jordan gave a single, courteous nod but continued forward. He was not seeking validation. He was seeking closure. The same older woman who had defended him earlier approached gently, her voice warm but shaken. I hope you know that some of us saw the truth from the start. Not all of us shared her prejudice. Jordan met her eyes. I appreciate that, he said. And I hope you continue to speak up when it matters. She touched her hand to her chest, promising silently that she would. The teenager who recorded the incident stepped forward next, lowering her phone out of respect. Sir, she said softly, I did not know things like this still happened.
Not like that. Not right in front of us. Jordan breathed slowly.
They have always happened, he replied. You just witnessed one that did not stay hidden. Her eyes glistened at the truth of it. When he reached the counter, Lena instinctively stepped toward him. Sir, she said, voice steady, your identification and documents are ready for authorization.
I will process the wire transfer as soon as you approve it.
Jordan smiled faintly. You handled yourself well today.
That will be noted in the audit.
Lena's eyes widened, gratitude softening her features.
Thank you, sir.
Truly. Jordan then turned to the guard, who stiffened. Sir, the guard said quietly, I take full responsibility for approaching you the way I did. I should have known better than to escalate without assessing the situation. Jordan studied him for a moment. Learn from it, he said. If you treat the next person with fairness, today will not have been wasted. The guard nodded, relieved yet humbled.
One of the compliance officers stepped forward.
Sir, there is only one procedural step left. Once you review and sign the audit summary, the acquisition transfer will be routed through your executive channel.
You may authorize it here or remotely.
Jordan looked around the lobby one last time, the place where his dignity had been challenged yet reaffirmed through truth, accountability, and quiet strength.
He placed his signature on the tablet with a single, deliberate stroke. The officer confirmed, authorization complete. Bryce exhaled audibly. A few customers clapped softly, almost unsure whether applause was appropriate, but unable to contain their respect.
Jordan raised his eyes and addressed the room. What happened here today is not uncommon, he said, the words landing gently but carrying undeniable power. The difference is that this time, there were witnesses, accountability, and truth that could not be ignored.
No one spoke. They simply listened.
Let this moment remind you, he continued, that dignity should not depend on appearance, assumption, or silence. The room absorbed his words, each person holding them as both a lesson and a mirror. And with that, Jordan stepped back from the counter, head high, his presence filling the lobby with a quiet authority that would be remembered long after he left.